1. The bells beneath the river. A grieving widow hears phantom bells beneath a moonlit river, calling her to the waters. The river had not always sounded like that. Once, it was laughter on stones and the hush of reeds in prayer. But now, since the day her beloved passed, the river had changed its voice. It murmured low and strange, as if it carried secrets under its skin, as if something deep beneath the current had begun to stir. Each night, she walked alone to its banks, her bare feet silent on the moss, her black veil fluttering like a broken wing. The villagers spoke of her in hushed tones, how she no longer wept, how her hands trembled even when still, how her eyes never blinked when she stared across the water. It was on the 7th moon after the funeral that she first heard them. Bells, faint and slow, not chiming but tolling like those rung for the dead in temples older than time. The sound did not come from above, but from below, beneath the silver river, beneath the bone-white mist, a sonorous sorrow, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She fell to her knees at the water's edge. "Is it you?" she whispered. Her breath made no ripple. That night, she dreamt of hands beneath the water soft, familiar, glowing faintly like lanterns caught in a tide. They reached for her, but did not pull. They waited. The next night, the bells came again, and again, and again, until she could no longer tell whether they rang in the world or only in her. On the 13th night, she brought an offering, a small bowl of jasmine rice wrapped in a mourning cloth. She placed it gently into the river, watching it float like a white leaf, then vanish in a sudden swirl. "Speak to me," she said, and the wind hushed, and the river replied not in words, but in memory. She saw him, her beloved, his face made not of flesh, but of shimmer and shadow, gazing from the other side of the water. He did not move, but his eyes, they called. She rose, as if lifted by unseen hands, and stepped into the river. The cold was not cold. The pull was not downward. She walked forward, and the current parted like veils. And as she passed the threshold where the river met the marsh, the last thing she heard was the sound of bells growing louder, fuller, deeper, until it was not sound at all, but feeling, a summons, a homecoming, a mystery beginning to unfold. 2. Crossing the mirror reed marsh. She follows the whispers into a marsh where reflections speak and paths vanish beneath fog. The river gave way to reeds tall as trees, silver as blades, swaying in still air. The widow stepped cautiously, the waters thinning into soft mud beneath her soles. This was no ordinary marsh. The sky above dissolved into haze, and time moved like breath held too long. She paused, and so did the world. There were no stars here, only a pale glow that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. The reeds grew in spirals, not lines. Their leaves bore etchings like ancient runes, each one unfamiliar, yet stirring something forgotten within her. When she brushed against them, they sang notes so high and fine they pierced the veil of thought. At her feet, The water was glass. Not like glass. It was glass. A perfect mirror, reflecting not the sky, but scenes from memory twisted, fragmented, shifting. She saw herself as a girl, running through the wheat fields before the war. She saw her wedding day, her fingers trembling as they tied the red thread around his wrist. She saw the moment he left, his back turned, never knowing it was the last time. But these reflections, they did not mimic her. They watched her, moved when she did not. She turned sharply, and behind her, 1,000 selves turned too. Some wept, some smiled, one pointed. The path ahead split into 3. Left was a path of dry earth, narrow and dark, where the reeds grew closer like whispering monks. Right was a silver walkway of bones, perfectly arranged, gleaming in the mist. Forward was the mirror, no path at all, only her reflection standing still, gazing back with eyes that were no longer hers. She listened for the bells. They were gone. In their place, a whisper, faint, like wind through ash. Remember the name. Her voice caught in her throat. The name. Whose? Her own. His, or the one she had buried deep in silence. The whisper came again, louder this time, and the mirror rippled. She stepped forward, not onto the path, but into the reflection. The glass broke like breath on ice, and the marsh changed. Now the reeds were silent. Now the air was thick with incense she did not see. Now, the moon hidden till now pierced through, casting pale blue on everything. And in that light she saw them, figures among the reeds, still, watching, shrouded in mourning cloth, faces veiled. They held mirrors where their hearts should be. And one of them wore his shape. Not quite him. Not anymore. She did not run. She bowed, and the path unfolded, one made of woven light. Suspended above the water, the figure turned, leading her on, and the reeds sang again. 3. The keeper of hollow names. In a temple of wind and bone, she must name what she fears most to pass the veil. The path of light curved like a serpent across the marsh, rising gently until it brought her to a hill none could see until they stood upon it. There, carved into the earth like the ribcage of some forgotten god, rose a temple. It had no doors, no roof, no walls in the way of mortal structures. Instead, it was made of pillars white as bleached bone, humming softly with the voice of wind. The air here was colder, but not dead. It moved in spirals, circling upward toward a sky of ash and lightless stars. She stepped into the temple, barefoot upon stone etched with circles and glyphs. They pulsed beneath her feet. Not pain remembrance. At the center stood an altar shaped like a cradle and a tomb all at once. Within it, nestled like an infant of silence, lay a mask. It was smooth, silver, blank, and behind it, watching from the shadows that should not exist in such open space, sat the keeper. They wore no flesh, only robes of flickering dark. their face a void where one might drown. In their hand was a scroll made of black vellum, inked in gold flame. Without speaking, the keeper gestured to the mask, then to her, then to the scroll. She understood. This was not a trial of courage. It was a rite of surrender. She stepped forward and placed her hands on the mask. The moment she did, it whispered words in a tongue older than death. Her name, not the one given at birth, the one she buried when she became wife, then widow, the one she swallowed to survive, the one that still wept behind her silence. The mask pulsed in her palms. Its surface softened, like water, like skin. "Name it," the keeper said, not aloud. But through every stone, every gust of wind, she trembled. Her mouth opened. What came was not one name, but many: sorrow, silence, shame, anger, love, loneliness. She named them one by one, each falling like a stone into the unseen well beneath her soul. And when she finished, the mask no longer shimmered. It cracked, and within it, glowing like coal at the end of prayer, was a seed. She took it. The keeper rose. From their voided face came not voice, but breath warm and golden. It wrapped her like the arms of a mother who never left. She wept then, not from pain, but release. The scroll vanished. The altar crumbled. The temple faded into wind, and she stood once more alone, seed in hand, name reclaimed. No longer seeking, but chosen. Ahead, the veil parted, and the dead began to sing. 4. Where the dead wait without time. Beyond the veil, she walks through a spectral village where the dead remember her. The veil did not part with sound or spectacle. It simply dissolved, like morning mist before an unseen sun. And beyond it, no judgment, no fire, no cold silence. A village, not ruined, not abandoned, alive in stillness. Lanterns floated mid-air, tethered to nothing. Their glow was not light, but memory soft, warm, humming with familiar tones. Houses shaped like old songs lined the path, each one built not of wood or stone, but woven moments, laughter, scent, the creak of floorboards remembered in dreams. She stepped into this place as one walks into a dream long forgotten. The first figure she saw sat beneath a withered tree, plucking petals from a flower that bloomed only in funeral processions. He looked up, eyes like rain clouds. It was her brother, not as he was at death, but as he might have been had he never known war. He smiled, said nothing, only nodded. Further down, a woman stirred a pot over no fire. The scent rose, a soup only her grandmother ever made. The woman turned, her face a mirror of welcome. No words passed, but in the air, the old lullaby hummed itself into being. The village was not for speech. It was for knowing. Each soul she passed, father, lover, stranger, child, reached out with eyes, gestures, breath. They did not cling. They remembered, and in remembering, they freed. She wept again, but not as before. This time the tears fell like incense, each one lifting something from her regret. Fear, the weight of holding on. She came at last to a great plaza. In its center stood a tree, leafless, silver-barked, bearing fruit made of light and ash. Beneath it sat the figure in the mourning cloth, her beloved. He stood as she approached. No words. Only eyes, those eyes she had known better than her own heartbeat. He lifted a hand, touched her cheek, and as he did, every moment they had lived together unfolded in silence between them, not as pain, as offering. She placed the seed in his palm. He closed his fingers over it, and as he did, the tree behind him bloomed, just once. Its flowers burst in silent flame, and then faded, turning into birds of ember and mist that flew upward beyond stars. Beyond veil. He stepped back, and she understood. This was not a place to stay. It was a place to remember why we must return. He pressed his hand to her chest, and she woke. But not in the world she had left. Not yet. There was one more step, one more truth to name. 5. The voice that was her own. She returns bearing not answers, but a sacred echo, her grief, now a bridge. Not a chain. She awoke where river met shore, but not as before. The night was still, yet not silent. Crickets sang in low thrum, and the air moved with the hush of unseen wings. She sat up slowly. The marsh was gone. The reeds no longer stood. Only stones now marked the place, half sunken, like teeth of a sleeping beast. The moon, once veiled, shone clear above her, its face full, its gaze tender, and within her chest, silence. But not emptiness. She reached up, fingers brushing her collarbone. Beneath the skin pulsed a rhythm subtle, radiant. The seed was gone, but its echo remained. She stood and turned toward the path home. Her feet knew the way, though the trail had shifted. When she entered the village, the lamps were low and the air cool with morning's edge. The first to see her was the old basket weaver, who paused mid-stitch and whispered, "She walks again." Others gathered slowly, silent, reverent. No one asked where she had been. They saw it in her eyes. She did not speak, not yet. Instead, she walked to the river's edge once more, where the current hummed as before. She knelt, cupped the water in her palms, and drank. And the bells no longer tolled in mourning. They rang clear, like temple chimes in spring. Later, when she finally spoke, her voice was not loud, nor soft. It was rooted, like the mountain, like prayer. And the children came to sit near her feet, asking not of the dead, but of the silence she carried. She taught them not to fear it, to listen within it, to feel the names of things they had yet to lose. She did not become priestess, nor hermit, nor prophet. She became a vessel, a bridge. When others grieved, they came to her not for answers, but for remembering. And in time, she taught them the song, the one the dead had sung with no mouths, the one made not of words, but presence. Years passed. She grew silver-haired, sun-lined, and on the final morning of her life, as she sat beside the river one last time, the bells rang once more soft, loving, distant. She smiled, closed her eyes, and the veil fell. But this time, from the other side, a voice whispered, "Welcome back." And it was her voice, whole, timeless, free.